Welcome to Ability Assistance. My name is Phyllis Jones, and I chair the North Andover Commission on Ability Assistance.
My name is Stacey Leibowitz. I am the Secretary of the North Andover Commission on Ability Assistance.
We want to welcome back our guests today, Brad Howell, President and CEO of Waystone Health and Human Services. Thank you very much for joining us again.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
We have so much to talk about.
Yes,
that's why we had to have you back.
Exactly. When we had you last on, you started talking about employment, and that kind of sparked something that Stacey and I have been both harping at in terms of yes, in terms of there's a workforce out there that wants to work. There seem to be a lot of jobs out there that seem to need people in terms of specifically retail jobs, small businesses, and we want to make sure that people are aware that there's a population that wants to work and there's a way to get them to work and make everything work. So please, what do you offer?
How do we make that happen?
How do we make that
We
happen?
want to know specifically the programs that you offer and how people qualify for those programs, and then obviously how they are matched into positions in the community.
And how we can get the employers involved locally in terms of that.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a really good point. So Waystone has a number of different vocational and employment programs.
Yeah.
We serve folks that are funded through and come through referrals through the Mass Rehab Commission, which I know you're very familiar with.
Yes.
And also through the Department of Developmental Services. But the large majority of people that we serve that are looking for work right away, are through the Massachusetts Rehabilitation Commission. And so the eligibility works through the state in terms of applying for eligibility through Mass Rehab or through Department of Developmental Services. Our role is to get to know the person, understand what their job objectives or career objectives are, their capacity to work, their interests, their work history. Many times we do have people who have a work history, but the vast majority of folks don't have a lot of work history. So this may be their first time job, so it may be, what do I want to do? What am I good at? And that's kind of where the process starts. So
when can somebody can technically start working, I think you can get a work permit at 14. At least that's what it was way back when the dinosaurs roamed the earth.
That's right.
With a parental signature. So technically kids could start working when they're 14. And then, obviously all the ways up and, you reach adulthood and whatever. So you have somebody who wants to work, they're in their teenage years, they're still in high school up until possibly 22.
Right.
Okay, so they're looking for, if nothing more, part-time jobs, something that might be full-time during the summer months, if that's something that they can or want to do for whatever reason. Walk me through the process. I've got a kid who's 16, he wants to work. What do I do to have him get services through you to possibly get him a part-time job?
I'm glad you brought up younger folks still in school, because there's a program through the Mass Rehab Commission called PREETS, Pre-Employment Training. So this starts for young adults, we'll call it young adults, that are still in high school as they're getting closer to exiting school through graduation or through aging out of the school system at age 22, as you pointed out. So we start work, again, these are referrals from Mass Rehab Commission in partnership with the local schools. We happen to serve a lot of schools in the North Shore area, as well as the greater Haverhill and kind of up the seacoast a little bit.
Do you work with North Andover, Lawrence, Andover?
No, curiously not.
Really?
The way that the contracting works with the state tends to be more geographical, depending on where your contract is and where the need is.
Okay,
so there's groupings of schools in certain
I
areas.
come to you, I live in North Andover, you can refer me to your sister program
It might be a different agency,
right.
It might be a different agency, and it would probably go through the local Lawrence area Mass
Office,
Rehab
right.
Commission office to make that referral.
Referral.
Right.
So they would be referring to another agency similar to Waystone doing the work here in Lawrence, North Andover,
Yeah.
Right,
et cetera.
and that might be a little bit different than the DDS, Department of Developmental Services programs, where you may be serving people in the Andover, North Andover.
Absolutely,
Yes, because those
absolutely.
are different departments, and it's worth probably just specifically so people understand that DDS, you're dealing with people who may have cognitive, intellectual, or developmental disabilities from birth. Where MRC, Mass Rehab Commission, may also deal with that, because a lot of times the government agencies do work together sometimes. But they may deal with some of a population who have that, but generally deal with people with additional or differing disabilities from mental health, cognitive, physical. It may be a little bit different, and in many instances they self-identify. So that's where some of the funding is different, and maybe the geographic range is different, just so people understand that difference.
Some of it
Yeah,
overlaps.
overlaps.
And interlock.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great clarification.
Yeah.
Because, and those of us that work in the field understand that.
Yeah.
But even sometimes it's complicated.
Yeah.
Because, okay, somebody has funding through Mass Rehab, but we have DDS services that might be supportive,
Right.
and so there's nuances to each service.
Yes.
So it can be a complicated system to navigate.
Right.
So that is part of our job too. I get calls every so often that, could you talk to somebody I know who has a family member who's looking for services, and where do we start? Where do I
Yes.
go?
Right.
And just your show is great because it builds awareness of what is available in the community, what is available through the state. So how do I get connected?
Right.
And
How do I take that first step? Because that's usually, as a
toughest
parent, with a child who does need services of for a lot of different reasons. And I mean, I'm an attorney,
Right.
to stand back and say, okay, how do I take that first step?
Yeah.
And if I'm scared, I can't even imagine how scared another parent or caregiver might be
Exactly.
to take that first step.
Yep, I went through that with my sister when I had to move her up here. So that's what got me into the field ultimately, because it's incredibly complicated. I'm sure not just in Massachusetts.
Right.
So.
No. And I think, just to add on, it's not employment services, but it's our children and family services division too, where hopefully we're working with families when their kids are really young. So as they age and they become aware of other services that are appropriate for their age, whether it's day programs, employment programs, that's another way that we help to educate families and support families, because they're already connected to us.
Yes.
But the employment piece, kind of circling back,
Yeah.
we do work with a broad range of folks with different abilities, from people who've had cognitive and intellectual issues, folks with mental health, and we have a small program working with veterans with disabilities as well, which is also funded through Mass Rehab Commission in partly through grants.
Yeah.
What about, does the Veterans Association help with that as well, or?
The Veterans Administration does not directly help with that program. We have had discussions. In fact, the Commissioner of Mass Rehab, Tony Wolf, has been very proactive and supportive of us trying to work across state agencies.
But then you're also dealing with the Veterans Administration, a little bit of federal as well.
There is, and this is maybe a topic for another day,
Yeah.
but the coordination,
Many things.
the coordination across state agencies is something I could talk about for a while. But we have a robust system here in Massachusetts, so that is great. So working with folks to find employment, and Phyllis, I know you were bringing up, there's all these jobs out here.
Yes.
You see help wanted everywhere.
You know,
And-
whether it be
yeah.
at the local donut shop, the local fast food place with name brands to it, or the local ice cream shop that isn't a name brand unless, you know, you live in a local area and you know that particular ice cream shop.
Right.
We'll call it old term school ma and pa stores, kind of a situation.
Yep.
You know, that they need people, they want people.
Yes.
Always.
And I think our role, in part, is to connect with those businesses and those employers. And we have, you know, a number of relationships with local businesses that understand what we're doing. It's getting ourselves and the folks that are seeking work in the door, so to speak, and understanding that reliable, dependable, and a whole support team in case somebody needs retraining, or we work with the employer to work with the person who maybe we need to carve out different aspects of the job so that they can be successful. So some of the responsibilities or duties of a position as it is may not always work. So we have employers who are willing to work with us to say, okay, maybe the person can't lift the 50 pounds, so that piece of the job we can figure out somebody else can do, and work with us, because there's a lot that the person we're trying to have work there can do. And so let's not throw the whole thing out because the person
Exactly.
can't do one or two of the responsibilities.
And I think even to kind of flip that, when you talk about job carving, it could also be when you have an employment specialist going in or job coach, it's looking at helping the employer to find what their need might be that they didn't even know that they had, and carving out something that this particular person can do that supports the company,
Right.
that may be really beneficial but they didn't realize that they needed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think this speaks to, it takes time
Yep.
to connect
Yes.
with employers. It takes willingness on employers' side to understand the value of the workforce that we all touch. And there are people out there, but there could be more.
Exactly.
There could be more. And I think once an employer, and we've had a great relationship with the Methuen Home Depot, for instance,
Yeah.
who is always willing to hire people who want to work there and look at everybody's particular situation. It not only helps them with their recruitment and hiring and retention, it helps with the agency culture, the organization's culture, the business's culture, because people become aware of, and it's not just folks that we work with that are looking for jobs that might need some
Assistance?
assistance, support, different
Coaching.
kind of training or coaching. Could be the general workforce that is coming in that can benefit, new training practices, more awareness around how your business is set up physically, more accessible for everybody and the customers.
And you brought up a fantastic point, long-term employment, stability.
Right.
Because a lot of times, that's something that a lot of small employers struggle with, because I know a lot of these smaller employers, typically the college kids would come in, they would be the ones who would work the holiday breaks,
Right.
they would be the ones who
Summer.
work the summer, and now they're the ones who are having a hard time finding the jobs because these local places don't want to train, unless you were already working there in high school and you're coming back for hours.
Right.
These local places don't want to train because by the time they're done training you, you're
leaving.
gone.
Right.
And I mean, we've all seen those stories on YouTube. Everybody's passed around those, you know, TikToks or reels on Instagram where you see the person specifically with Down syndrome who's worked at the same fast food restaurant for 20 years,
Yep.
always a smile on his or her face. The customers know this person. You know, you're a local fast food restaurant. You're the owner of a local fast food restaurant. You have somebody who's working there 20 years. And they get to a point where they're training the kid who's
The new
coming,
people.
the new kids who are coming
Yeah.
in.
Right.
I mean, how valuable
Right.
is that
Right.
to a small business owner?
It is, and I think it's our collective job, I'll say, to kind of tell that story,
Yeah.
just as you told it, because I think, you know, everybody is still looking for workers, and a lot of it is entry-level, retail, food service, customer service.
Yes.
And we do have a workforce. We have access to a workforce, and the unemployment rate, as I'm sure you're aware, for people with disabilities, is astronomical.
Yes.
It's
Still.
like 70+%.
70+%,
It's very
yeah.
high, and I will add, and I know you know this, that population in general is very eager to work. They will be your best workers.
Yes.
I've
Absolutely.
always said that because there is such value. They are more than aware of the
And they're-
discrimination,
yes.
and they want to work.
And they are so thrilled
Yeah.
to be offered an opportunity.
Absolutely.
I mean, I told you, we've got kids, in the studio who volunteer for us once a month who have challenges.
Mhm.
And after graduation, they're coming back to us because they love what they're able to do. And as I told you before we went on camera, it's volunteer work, it's not paid,
Mhm.
but if anybody who wants to be able to volunteer, they get to learn that one thing. So if somebody says, I want to learn how to run a soundboard, you come in, maybe you come in with a coach, and that person learns the soundboard. But it's no different than what happens to a neurotypical individual who comes into this industry because they get really good at that
Right.
one thing.
Mhm, mhm.
And they can then bring it out into the real world, for lack of a better term.
Yep. Great example. Start somewhere. Have to start somewhere. We all did, and
Exactly.
build on those experiences and skills. And I think I will add that there are other factors that are factors for everybody in terms of being able to work. Transportation,
Yes.
Yes.
childcare, health issues, accessibility, if there's, ambulation is an issue, or navigating certain terrain is an issue. And the MVRTA, MIVA, going to free fares has been a huge
It's a game changer.
game changer for a
Yes.
lot of our folks.
Former state representative Christina Minicucci was here
Yeah.
talking to us about that and about the special program where if you fill out the medical form, they can even have the smaller van
Was that
come.
Mini Miva?
Yeah, the
Mini
mini
Miva,
Miva,
yep.
thank you.
Yep.
Come,
Yeah.
pick you up, and then
Yeah.
bring you to where the larger service is.
Mhm.
So if it's the train station in Lawrence to get you into Boston, for example, or towards Boston, they can take you there, and now you're on the train, and then
Yep.
turn
Yep.
it around.
Yep. So similar issues with our systems, with transportation. And we do have a lot of folks who aren't looking for full-time work
Right.
for a variety of reasons. Maybe their own physical situation, maybe their transportation, maybe their living situation. The vast majority of people that we support, not just in vocational services, but across all of our services, aren't living on their own.
Right.
Maybe they're
Yes.
living with family, maybe they're living in some sort of supportive setting. So, and again, the vast majority don't have their own vehicle. Occasionally somebody does.
Or they might not be cleared
Or
to
they
get.
might-
To drive.
Correct. So for a variety of reasons, they only may be looking for part-time work.
Yes.
Some employers, I want to fill this full-time position, I don't want 2 or 3 people. And on one hand, I can understand that.
Yes.
There's 3 people to hire to fill that job versus, and then what happens with one person leaves, and you want the job filled,
Right.
right? You have a need. However, if you're willing to engage in discussion around how this could look, there's probably a solution for a lot of those situations that might work. And it's better than leaving the job vacant.
Right.
And
Exactly.
nobody
Well,
there.
job sharing
Job sharing, exactly.
is, even if, do I want to hire 2 or 3 people? But like you said, if that one person leaves, at least you still have somebody who can fill parts of that job.
right.
So being creative around it
Right.
is a great option.
And by having 2 people who, might be able to help fill that one full-time job, you're not necessarily at a point where you're completely understaffed.
Right.
True. No, that's very true. And I think that it's, one thing that we have is we have groups that go into a business. So they contract with us, and we provide a small group of people to perform this amount of work or these tasks. So we call it group employment. We don't have a lot of that because our goal is everybody gets hired by the employer.
Yes.
But it can be a nice stepping stone for people who haven't had a lot of experience, might not have been hired straight out just to do that particular job because they don't have the experience. And so that group can share the tasks, and collectively they can get it all done.
Now, I know employers might be asking, okay, I'm willing to pay $17 an hour for you to be filling that job.
Right.
But now you have a job coach, a mentor, and all these other people who might be associated with that $17. Has my $17 now turned into $30 an hour? Or is the state taking care of, or is somebody taking care of the salaries of those three other people, and I'm just paying still you $17 an hour?
Good question, and it is a tricky situation.
There's always a trick when it comes
It really is kind of working through what does the business need. You know, how many hours is this job? If you have a full-time 40-hour position that needs to be filled and you're having trouble filling it, or you want to give people an opportunity to learn, gain experience, and maybe out of those 3 or 4 people that we have coming with a job coach, one of those folks, maybe they will get that job.
Yes.
Maybe, you know, people didn't know that person is skilled. That person might not know they have the skills. So after time, that could be a pipeline to fill other jobs for the company. So to us, we'd like to look at it as a value added. It may cost more than hiring straight out, but you have a support team, you're making sure the job gets done, and you are training up people who could potentially work in your business.
So you're not just paying for the person, you're also paying for additional training. So you're not necessarily, you know, paying, I as the small business owner, to hire you for $17 an hour. If I have Stacey doing training, but she's training everybody, okay?
Right.
Somebody from your department, your agency, might be helping to train you, which frees Stacey up to train other employees.
Right. And this is a component that has become a much larger component in recent years when we start talking about diversity and equity and inclusion and belonging. A lot of times, and rightfully so, we're focused on race.
Race,
and
ethnicity, religion,
ethnicity.
gender.
But the disability
Community is totally forgotten.
is often left out of
Yes.
that discussion. And I've been doing this a long time, and now doing a lot more in the DEI space in our agency and in the community, that it still has to be a reminder how to incorporate disability, folks with different abilities being thought of as diversifying the workplace.
Yes.
So as companies, and many companies and businesses are focused on DEI work, and so actively, training and actively trying to diversify their workforce, but not thinking that this is another way of doing that.
Yes.
I need to add something to that because that's been my chant all along, because I think every organization has now embraced the DEI model, but there is that inclusion piece for disability. But even beyond that is intersectionality, right? Because you have people who may have a disability, who may be gay, who may be, from Mexico, who may be, add those layers because people are not one-dimensional, right?
Exactly.
So how do we address that? Because you may be dealing with discrimination because you have a disability or because of your cultural background or both.
Yes.
So there are layers
Absolutely.
to peel through, I'm sure, even with the population served.
Absolutely, and I know for me, in my role at Waystone, but also as a person, that is the discussion that I'd love to be having with not just businesses, but the community
Yes.
around how are we supporting each other? Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, if you're embracing that openness and willingness to be vulnerable and look at the biases that you may have, that we all have, but then the doors get open for everybody.
Yeah.
And we all are part of systemic change around opportunities. Whether you have a disability and you happen to be Latino or
Yep.
whatever your situation is, it doesn't matter anymore. We're all just trying to help somebody get
And
better
that
opportunities.
self-disclosure form that you often find either at the end of an employment application or when you do get a job, it's a self-disclosure form. You know, I think I mentioned last time, I have epilepsy. So yeah, I do put on there that I have a disability. But if I didn't want to disclose it, I'm not going to say yes, I'm going to
Yeah.
say no. And it's a matter of, okay, that's nice, they're trying to check off boxes, you know.
Right.
Am I a veteran? Now, am I a Vietnam era veteran? Yes or no? And they're just checking off boxes. If somebody doesn't want to check off a box,
For fear.
for fear, you know,
Like
of
how do we help people to feel safe?
E-
Like you said, that
exactly.
vulnerability, but how do we, make safe spaces with employers? And
And-
it's the same for,
Right.
who you're serving.
And
Yeah.
it's kind of a rhetorical question, but it's a real question too, that for me, it's these discussions.
Yeah.
yes.
And it's with discussions that maybe with people who aren't necessarily as like-minded, because we're kind of preaching to the choir here, it feels like,
Yeah.
to each other.
And the biggest thing that people don't realize is you don't know what you need until all of a sudden you need it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's right, that's right.
Tell us a success story.
Yes,
Success story.
just before they cut us off.
Yeah,
One
'cause
one
I've already gotten
success.
the, tell us a
Well,
success story.
there's a gentleman that we worked with in our, this is on the DDS
Yeah.
employment program, where he had not been employed before, a young man, and he was in two services that are somewhat different that we have. One was the employment, and he did end up getting a job at a local retail, and I think you had mentioned earlier just the pride, the
Yes.
Yes.
unbelievable
Yes.
the value, and I think for me it's a great reminder, because that not to take for granted. I've been working for a long time, and it's like, yeah, work, and the value it brings, even if it's entry level, it's a minimum wage, and I think that staying open to that, it's a new experience for each person,
Yeah.
Yes,
and that even though there's, hopefully we support hundreds of people getting jobs, we do support close to 200 people, if you include the pre-ETS
Yeah.
program. There's about 100 youth in that program every year. But if 200 people got jobs,
What a
that would be
difference.
amazing.
Yeah.
so the big first step is somebody needs to make sure that they get DDS and/or mass rehab benefits.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, they're eligible for their services, correct.
Right.
Correct.
And then take it that next step and
Yep.
They may get referred to you, depending, because again, as you said, this is based on geography,
Right.
and then you go from there,
or
helping
they'll
them.
get referred to a similar agency that performs similar services in similar, just different geographic areas.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because you're all contracted to do the same exact thing,
That's correct.
just in different geographic
That-
makeups.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. And we all have it. Part of our contracts with Mass Rehab Commission is we have goals. How many
Right.
people we will help get jobs, how long will they
Right.
stay employed, and consider to be a successful employment.
Mhm.
So it's not just, it's that retention too.
Right.
It's not like, you got a job, see you later. We want to make
Yeah.
sure somebody maintains that job for at least 90 days, and then the support can kind of wane
Yeah.
or continue, depending.
Yeah. And there's funding around that as well.
Exactly,
So-
and that's the big thing.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming back, explaining
Absolutely.
to us how we can help people get jobs and how we can help small employers fill jobs,
Yes.
because it's a win-win for everybody, I think.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
thank you
those-
for having me and raising this important topic.
No,
Thank you.
We really appreciate it.
Waystone Health and Human Services is located in Lawrence, Mass., and you can call them at 978-685-9471 and find them online at waystonehhs.org. If you're looking for any Commonwealth government office, simply visit mass.gov and search for the office you're looking for.
We want to thank our crew this month. From GLTS, it's Alec Santiago, GLTS alum John Kafori, and from NECC, Cassie Buono, sorry. I'm trying, Cassie. And from Curry College, Carly Jones.
State Representative Adrian Ramos will be joining us in April. And finally, what is currently known as Mass Rehab Commission, which will hopefully be known as Mass Ability.
Soon, we're still waiting on that legislation
Yes.
to pass.
Will be our June guest. And that will round out our 2023-2024 season. We're already starting to look forward towards 2024-2025 and planning towards our 50th episode.
Amazing.
Yes,
We've
towards
been
the end
doing
of our
this for many years.
2025 season. Just a few quick public announcement reminders. You can still tell National Grid your story directly, attending their in-person public hearings. The one closest to us is in Lawrence on March 12 at 7 p.m. at the South Lawrence East Elementary School Auditorium at 165 Crawford Street. You can participate in the Zoom hearings on March 21, 2024 at 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. We'll post the information down below in the credits. And you're still more than welcome to reach out to the commission by emailing me directly at pjones@northandoverma.gov or calling me or texting me directly at 978-494-0136. The town of North Andover has a town election. I know we just did the primaries, but they have a town election. In addition to voting in person on election day, you can vote early at town hall. You can vote by mail. You must register to vote no later than March 16th. And to request a mail-in ballot, the request must be received no later than March 19th of 2024. If you have any questions about any of your early voting options, call the clerk's office at 978-688-9501. You can also request to North Andover at the clerk's office by sending an email to vote@northandoverma.gov. Fax them at 978-688-9557. Drop it off in that drop box in front of Town Hall, or mail it to the town clerk at 120 Main Street. We're consistently looking for new topics to explore here at Ability Assistance, and we truly love to know what topics you want more information about. If there's a specific topic that you would like to learn more about, please, again, email me directly at pjones@northandoverma.gov or call or text me at 978-494-0136. In addition to watching through our cable station, you can catch all of our programs on demand. This list keeps growing. We got YouTube, we got the Cablecast app through Roku, through Android and the Apple system. We've got North Andover's website, we've got the Commission's Facebook page, we've got North Andover CAM's website, and we've got the podcast rolling out via Podbean. So there's no excuse, you can catch everything. From all of us at Ability Assistance, happy St. Patrick's Day, happy Easter to those who celebrate, Ramadan Karim to those who celebrate, and a happy Women's History Month. Thank you.